everybody. This is Jim.
Hey, and this is Mike.
And we have another show for you. We're on show number 15. And today what are we going to talk about, Mike?
We're going to talk about vinyl, the resurgence of vinyl, and everything about vinyl records.
Yes, we're talking records, not Tupperware. That is correct, right?
That is correct. It's interesting, Jim, vinyl, what it was back then for so many years, I think it held the most decades, for recorded music. It was mostly, if you look back in the history of recorded music, mostly on vinyl.
Since record players, like the old Victrolas.
Right. I have a Victrola, 78 RPMs, and it's from 1905, maybe 1908. Yeah. I've got something right in front of me here. It says that Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. Before that, it was a cylinder. So he had a cylinder even before vinyl with grooves on it, and that was back in 1877.
That was a metal cylinder.
Yeah, metal cylinder.
With little bumps.
The bumps, and then later he put the grooves on it, and then it went to a flat disc from there.
Okay.
So, Jim, do you happen to know the first recorded song ever? First ever recorded song?
I'm thinking of Robert Johnson, but I'm sure.
No, it was Thomas Edison testing his phonograph.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He recorded himself singing Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mary Had a Little Lamb. I thought that was interesting. So, Jim, as we look at vinyl, we're looking at all from back with Thomas Edison to what is today. We're looking at all the different methods, the different ways that music is recorded. And, we go from vinyl. Then it was reel to reel. When I was living in Allentown, there was a friend, and he would put on his reel to reel music while we were there. This is the mid '80s.
I had a reel to reel.
You did? I didn't know that.
Well, it didn't. It was a recorder.
Okay.
And I remember I had this really nice acoustic guitar. Eventually, you get rid of stuff, and I don't know what happened to it. But the sound.
Now, as far as the tapes go, it was wide and it had a greater range. You could really hold a lot with it.
Yeah.
Now, another advantage of reel to reel was you could put it on at a party, and I don't know, it would go hours, just hours and hours, and just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, of course, the downside with reel to reel is you can't just carry it easily. You'd have to pack it up.
See, I don't remember reel to reel.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was that something you could buy?
Well, it was more for professionals, and it didn't make commercial sense. It wasn't out there commercially.
Or would you record your albums on the reel to reel?
I think you would record things.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But back to production of music, after that, the 8-track came, and you and I remember 8 tracks.
Yes.
My first sound system in my home as a tween, we didn't call ourselves tweens back then, but as a preteen, was an 8-track, and it was an 8-track recorder. I think you had one.
Yeah, I had a stereo.
That's what we called them back then, a stereo, the home system.
I say stereo. I have friends who make fun of me.
Stereo. Yeah.
Tomato. It had a built-in 8-track.
Yeah.
And the 8-track, I think Mike and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe, with that it had actually 4 tracks, 4 buttons.
Mm-hmm.
It would have maybe 2 songs, 3 songs on each track.
And when you're producing the album, if it's going to be out in 8-track, you either have to manage your time per song, or you're going to get that clunk, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many minutes were on each track.
But the song volume would go down. You'd hear it go down. It would fade.
And it would start into the next.
But it would go down, then it would go, and then back up again.
Yeah.
So right in the middle of the song, you have the song stopping, and and then it goes again.
I mean, maybe in the car. Mike here had a Rambler.
65 Rambler,
which
classic.
Had an 8-track. And we're talking...
I listened to Blondie and Supertramp over and
80s?
over again. That was the end of the 80s.
Okay.
But it happened to have an 8-track in it.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, 8 tracks, I remember as a preteen, my uncle saying, you don't want to buy the 8-track player. Cassettes are the latest thing.
Yeah.
But I already had a couple 8 tracks. I'm already in,
Yeah.
So then cassettes came on. Of course, the advantage of cassettes, you've got no kunk, right in the middle of your songs. Right?
Yeah.
And what's the advantage of cassettes? Yeah, they're smaller. They're even smaller. You can put it in your pocket. You get an 8-track in your pocket, and people are going to wonder, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, you can fit the cassettes are smaller, and it's better for your sound system in your car.
Yeah, and they had portable 8-track players.
Mm-hmm.
They had, I believe, a handle on the top.
Yeah.
You could carry them around.
Mm-hmm.
So when the cassette came out, you had the Sony Walkman. Now, I have a Sony Walkman and I can tell you it's from 1991, because my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, that was the first thing she bought me for Christmas. And I still have it.
Wow.
But I don't really have any cassettes. I used to listen to the radio on it if I could tune in a radio station.
Yeah. So that was smaller, and that was, you could actually carry it around, clip it.
It has a clip on it.
Yeah, you can clip right to your belt or to your pants or something. Before yoga pants, there was actually some substance to your pants, and you
now even with going into vinyl, there were portable record players, but they weren't sensible. You wouldn't carry them around with you when you went on a walk.
No, you take it to a friend's house, right?
Yeah, but they did have a portable record player, which they started making again, of course.
Well, my first little record player was it had a hand. You closed the lid and you carried it around with a handle. It actually had a handle.
There was
on
a clip on it.
Yeah. Correct. So cassettes really lasted long, and cassettes you could do different things with them. You didn't have to be so careful, like don't scratch that record. Yeah. You could be a little bit more abusive with them. I remember then digital. You're going from analog to digital, the digital age, and some of us remember how blown away we were to hear that the silence was silence, no pops, no click, no shh.
Yeah.
As if you turn your vinyl up really loud, you can hear a little bit, and that's the friction of the needle going against the vinyl. But with CDs, it's light beam, and there's no hiss or pops or clicks.
I remember it, the brilliance of the sound.
Just sounding so good. I think my first CD was the Style Council.
Mine was U2, Joshua Tree.
Oh wow, I bet it sounded good.
Yeah. And I remember that was a great time to purchase my first CD player, and I don't know what CDs after that I bought, but I know that was the first one to hear it clear.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too long after that album came out, so it wasn't like I had an old Beatles album that was beat up, but it still sounded a lot better. Now I've changed my mind over time, as some people have, because the new vinyl, the remastered, remaster. Yeah. I actually think it does sound, you get more ambiances on the vinyl.
A wider range. Yeah. And even more so, moving into digital music that's not on the CD, but actually digital within flash drives, USBs, on your computer. The compression.
Yeah,
this is something,
I was going to say that. It's more compressed.
Right. Right, MP3 actually is one I think that is more compressed, and so only if you're listening really closely can you hear that you are not hearing that full range of really low, super low, and the really high crisps. It's compressed, and you're not hearing as many frequencies. Yeah.
Now, if we were on an album, we'd sound a lot better.
So take this and put it to vinyl. Press us.
Yeah, press us on an album.
Yeah.
And you will not believe the sound of my voice.
Listen to the sound of my voice.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. It sounds really good. And press was a word. That's what they would do. They would press out the albums.
Yeah.
How they do it, how they get all that music in those little grooves.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. It's amazing.
There are still albums that are compressed more than others. I'm in a couple vinyl album groups on Facebook. And someone had, I forget what album it was, but they had 2 copies, and they noticed the one copy, where the space was, where the grooves weren't towards the label,
in the inside,
was wider than the other one.
Okay.
So there was some compression.
Yeah. And
who knows why? Because it was the same album.
Yeah, that shouldn't be. That's really interesting. So it went longer,
unless it was a mistake.
So from CDs, we have a gradual. I don't know how many years ago, it was gradual CD sales going down because you could get your music streamed.
Yes.
And if not just streamed, sharing it. You get a CD and you put it to digital, you put it on a USB drive, you put it to another CD, and you just start moving music, and CD sales went down.
And with the iPod, I bought I still have my same iPod. It's iPod Classic. want to say it's 120 gigabyte.
It's well used.
I'll never fill it. And I must have gotten that like a good 15 years ago.
Wow.
Still works.
No moving parts.
I've got 7,500 songs on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, over time, some things do come back. They come back in style, whether it's clothing, you know, even a food product may go away for a while and come back sort of to get that retro feel.
So now, Jim, today, every day, I do not daily listen to records, 8 tracks, cassettes, or CDs. I'm listening to Apple Music. It's on my phone. The phone's in my hand, and I got the Bluetooth speakers, and so just able to search the whole world. Well, almost right. There's some special stuff you can't get on Apple Music, but right there it is in my hand, in whatever room I want, in my car. Plug it in. I'm still plugging it. I don't have Bluetooth in my old truck. Yeah. But it's there, and it's great quality, and you don't have to carry anything.
No, because you're already carrying your phone.
Yeah, it's already with you.
I still make it a point to, every Friday, I call it my vinyl chill, or my Friday chill. And sometimes it's streaming Apple Music. Mostly it's vinyl albums.
You go old school. You get the...
Yeah. And I don't listen with headphones. Where we're recording the podcast right now, my stereo is behind me. And I have these nice tall speakers, and I'll lay here on the futon, put a light on, like one little light.
You're with your favorite beverage.
Yeah. And just take in the music.
Right.
And it's a good way to distress if you have a lot of stress, just to, if you have that opportunity, that you have what's called a music room, which a lot of people are doing now. Going back to the, what people did in the 60s, 70s, maybe even they had a room where they listen to the radio or music. And
it's going to sound weird, but the album is playing for you. I mean, it's moving. There's moving parts. It's playing for you. It's not just in your phone. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's doing its thing for you.
Yeah, and I've found with some older albums, if they weren't remastered on Apple Music, it's hard to describe, but I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. You can hear the streaming. You can hear there's albums on there that do sound pretty good, or the newer ones, because they're already using the latest technology.
The highest technology, yeah.
But the older albums that haven't been remastered, when they went to, I think iTunes uses MP4s, which is similar to MP3. I'm not sure the difference.
That would be an upgrade.
But you're still taking an older version, an older recording, and trying to make it sound good, and it's still it just doesn't, or it's really low too. I found that.
And I think that different people have different hearing abilities. Some people can hear certain frequencies and be more discerning and say that's just not perfect.
And I'm half deaf, so don't listen to anything I'm telling you right now. No.
So Jim, we're going to get to this later, but some of the advantages of vinyl, we can get to that later, but I just want to mention one. One is having it in your hands and looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
Reading all the credits, reading who engineered
the liner notes.
Yeah. When I'm streaming, I don't get any of that. I don't get the pictures. I don't get who was sitting in, what musician. Oh, this guy played drums on this 3rd and 6th track. Wow.
Well, sometimes before I got Apple Music, I would download an album that you would pay for, and a lot of times it had a booklet with it. But you would have to print it out or look at it on your computer. As you get older, looking at the CD booklets, this print is so small.
Right.
But vinyl, I think for me and probably Mike, it just brings back a lot of good memories of bringing home an album, putting it on the turntable, laying on your bed or whatever, and reading the lyrics or
while you're
singing
listening
along. Well, if it was a new album, you wouldn't know the word, but
no, you have to read lyrics.
Yeah, or even read the thank yous, or there might be a little information about how they recorded the album.
This sounds trite, but it is related to what the album means to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you remember your first vinyl purchases? Maybe one or two. Your first vinyl purchases that you brought home. Do you remember any?
Oh, I remember the first one.
Okay. Your first love.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to tell anyone. I'm a little embarrassed.
No, I think this is the time, Jim.
So it was Saturday Night Fever, the movie with John Travolta.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't know, when did that come out? I was probably 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I think that was 78.
It's just the age to get into music, right around 11. A lot of us, that's when you start to realize what music is and the meaning.
Yeah. So I had this sort of obsession with John Travolta. I'd watch Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah. Kotter, Mr. Kotter.
So that was the first album I bought. I had a paper route, which there's no paper routes anymore.
That means newspaper.
Yeah.
Paper route.
So a couple weeks ago, we released a interview with Dax Nielsen, and I forgot. I wanted to ask him because he grew up in the 90s, and I assume maybe there were paper routes, but I'm always interested what people's first jobs were, which we didn't get to ask.
That would be interesting, yeah. What was your first
But the paper route,
position?
That was the first time I started making my own money, and we had a record store. It was a place called Laneco.
And
it was a grocery store, but it was not only a grocery store, it had other areas of the store.
Yeah.
It was a department store.
It had a whole section in the back with that private coin dealer.
Yeah.
The coin collector.
There was a coin dealer in the back.
Yeah. The arcade had an arcade, and then the pizza shop was connected. And
there was a record store in there. Yeah, that's where I bought my first vinyl.
Jim, I bet 90% of your pay went to albums.
Probably.
80 to 90.
And my dad didn't like that I was spending my money on albums. He thought it was a waste of money.
What are you doing with that money?
But my mom liked music, but my dad, not to say anything bad about my dad, but he wasn't into music at all. And I find that odd. Once in a while I'll meet someone who doesn't listen to music.
Yeah.
For Mike and I who love music, there's not a day that doesn't go by that even if I get up in the morning, I might listen to something.
Something to feed your soul or comfort you or get you psyched up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes you out of where you are if you had a bad week. That's mainly why I started with the Fridays. I'd come home from work. Now I'm working less because of COVID. That was just to take an hour even, how long the album is. I have the luxury that I do have a finished basement and I can come downstairs and nobody will bother me and I can just listen to music. So
albums and cassettes, they were pretty much 22 minutes aside, 20 to 23 minutes aside, something like that.
Yeah.
So, you kind of tell time with it. With streaming today, I could listen for hours or I could just listen to a song or half a song and be done. This is very nostalgic, but you're listening to the album. It's playing for you, and you're giving it your time. Yeah,
I mean, you could listen to a new one that came out. You can listen for 10 hours. It's Elton John. Elton John came out with a box set.
So you can just keep listening.
It clocks in at 9 hours 58 minutes.
Wow. Let me go to my first remembrances. My brother and I would go to Woolworth's 5 and Dime. 5 and 10, and there'd be a big bin, kind of like if you go to Walmart, there's the old CDs in there or something, there's these bins, and we would look through these bins and find 45s, 3 for $1. I remember the first ones I brought back was David Bowie, Fame,
okay,
and Right, a song called Right, and I don't even know it. That's the weird part. Another one was the Doobie Brothers, Blackwater. And on the back of that was Song to See You Through. This is 1975 and 1974, so it must have been the years, because I remember they were relatively new. Maybe they were a year old or something when I got them. But I had this little record player. It was this pink and baby blue and white, and it was all paper on the outside. You open up, it's got the handle on it.
Yeah.
And this little, and a 3-inch speaker. I'm listening to all this in a 3-inch speaker. But, for me as a kid at 11 years old, listening to Fame, it's co-written by Carlos Alomar and John Lennon. I had no idea till last week. That John Lennon co-wrote David Bowie's Fame. It's a really unusual song. I mean, it's bizarre for the time. It's very unusual.
Well, Bowie was, he had many bizarre.
Yeah.
That didn't conform to lyrics, chorus, lyrics, bridge.
Right. He was adventurous. Bowie was very adventurous. So that's my remembrance of that. And of course, then, I have a older brother and older sister. You didn't. You had to plow your own way. But my brother was feeding me Led Zeppelin and Van Halen. And then my sister had Fleetwood Mac, the Rumors album and such. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike and I, we known each other, like we've said before, since we were 10. So we pretty much, I think, introduced each other to different types of music.
And you with the paper route.
Yeah.
Because I didn't make money till I was 16.
Yeah.
So you with the paper route, I specifically remember you came in and said, I bought Hotel California, and the album is just so good.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's, my memory from so many years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, and like, okay, maybe I can hear it if I come over, It was...
Yeah, I don't know if it was Hotel California.
Okay, well then it was...
Because I got a Hotel California story, real short.
All right. But it was probably another Eagles album then.
Well, years later, I was working on a garbage truck, briefly.
Seriously?
And we would go to this posh development in New Jersey. And they would throw out stuff that was perfectly good, TV sets. And then one day there was albums sitting there. And we're talking 1983, 84. No, it might have been 80, maybe 85. Around there, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them was Hotel California, the Eagles. The other one was a Wings album. So I'm trying to think when albums became unpopular, when CDs broke out.
I'm thinking 87.
Yeah. So what happened was people who had an album collection, they held on to them for a little while. Mm-hmm. Maybe some people just held on to them. And
some people just got rid of them right away. That's what you're saying.
So
the garbage.
I remember it was the early 90s when I went to a record store in Princeton Record Exchange, which I think is still there. Sold all my albums. That was the breaking point. I don't know when I bought my first CD, though. It must have been 88, 89.
88. Yeah, 88.
So it took me a good 4 or 5 years. I hung on to some albums.
Right.
I don't know
and we're going
to
talk about that. We're going to talk about those special albums.
And they went from, I didn't have a turntable anymore, or eventually I didn't have a turntable. And they were in the attic, they were in a box or, a case. And then they moved to my crawl space here. So I had all my
picturing them moving.
Yeah. I had all my U2 albums, and my wife, she has all these Madonna albums, and I decided not to sell those, to hold on to those. And the one's worth $150
cool
today. So that's what we're going to get into.
Right. Some of these really are worth something.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to get into, this resurgence of vinyl. And we figure it started about 10 or 12 years ago because of Record Store Day. Actually started in 2008. Now I know we hear about Record Store Day. It's like 3 or 4 times a year, might be 4 times a year.
And some people don't know what that is. They're not into vinyl that much. So Record Store Day is a place and a time that you go to. Yeah, it's I think it started out twice a year. This year they've already had 3 or 4 because of COVID, shut the record stores down, which are more and more record stores popping up now. But this will tell you something, is that vinyl revenue made up 62% of all physical music revenue this year so far, and this is this year, 2020. That's higher than I thought. So music listeners bought more vinyl records than CDs in the first half of 2020. According to the RIAA's new mid-year report, marking the first time since the 1980s that CDs were not the dominant physical medium. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, I'm assuming this is per vinyl and not price, because you have to watch. Vinyl is a lot more expensive now than it was before, especially these reissues. They can be $25, $30 or more. Wow. Where a CD you can get for like $10, sometimes $15. Yeah, so vinyl has outsold CDs. Yeah. Now, I bought a turntable a couple years ago. I decided it would be cool to start listening to vinyl again. Yeah. Of course, I've got about 600, 700 CDs. A couple years ago, I recycled most of the cases. I remember I got some of your booklets. Yeah, and I have these 2 binders. Each one holds about 250. And then I have a storage container of CDs. So I just have a lot of stuff. So I just started collecting vinyl. I like to collect the color vinyl. But we're going to get into Record Store Day.
Now, this is an annual event. It says annual. It's a little bit more than annual now. Inaugurated in 2008. Held on one Saturday every April and every Black Friday in November. So that's where it's normally 2 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then now each year they have a band that represents Record Store Day.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2008, it was Metallica. They opened the event at Rasputin Music in Mountain View, California. And that was April 19th, 2008. That was the first Record Store Day. Now, there were approximately 10 special Record Store Day releases. Now, what these are, they only make a certain amount of copies. It could be a vinyl album that was never, or something that was never released on vinyl. Because you have this period of time when CDs took over, they stopped producing vinyl. So you have all these albums that were never available on vinyl before.
Right, nearly 2 decades worth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they could also be something that was never released on vinyl that's old, too. And as you'll hear in our interview from a couple weeks ago, I talk about these 2 Cheap Trick albums. Mm-hmm. That were released, one last year, one this year, 2 different concerts from the 70s, which I don't think may not have been available before. Some of these vinyl releases are numbered, and some do go up in value, and some you take your chance with. The thing is, they will only allow you to buy one special Record Day release.
So you don't take it and buy 5 and profit from it.
Yeah, because a week later, a lot of this, if you paid $25, it could be $40 the next week, $50. It depends on what it is. Mm-hmm. So in 2011, the official ambassador, this is what they're calling it now for the event, was Ozzy Osbourne.
Did they have an interpreter for him? Because last time I heard him speak on NPR, it's about a year and a half ago, I really couldn't understand anything he said.
Yeah.
Well, it was Ozzy a long time. He's going to do a record drawing.
It's amazing how he can sing so clearly.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like a person with a stutter.
Yeah.
I think of Mel Tillis. We're going old school here, country.
Yeah.
He had a really bad stutter, but he sang so smooth.
So when Ozzy sings, you can understand him.
Yeah.
Just yeah. So maybe he was singing, his parts of that introduction.
So we go from 2008 to 2011 in a period of 3 years where the first one only had 10 releases. This one in 2011, believe it or not, over 600 artists celebrated the event with in-store appearances. Cool. 600.
Cool.
So that sounds like it was every record store.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that too, how, if not now, later, the record stores, be it vinyl, cassette, CDs, really have dwindled in numbers.
Yeah.
The actual physical brick and mortar stores.
This made it the world's largest music event of its kind.
Wow. Because
you have 600 artists. They're not all in the same place.
Right. But they're at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, so we go up to this year. And like I said, on April 29th, it was announced that Record Store Day would be postponed.
Right.
And spread across 3 dates. August 29th, September 26th, and October 24th. I think the August one was canceled. I was to the last 2, and I think there's one next month.
So with these Record Store Days, you go to participating record stores. Does every record store participate in this?
I think mostly everyone does.
Okay.
Now, sometimes there can be 200 releases that day, 400. Most of the record stores don't have everything. That's the thing. The last one I went to, it was in a mall, which we still have a mall nearby.
They still exist.
One of few.
Yeah.
Now, they opened at 11, which was good for me because I don't like to get up early.
We know that, Jim.
Yeah. So I get there, and there's a line.
Wow.
Now, I normally go a little bit later in the day or the next day, but if I go the next day, albums that I want are no longer there.
Right.
So I had 4 albums in mind. I wanted Alice Cooper had a live album, the Cheap Trick one, Johnny Cash. It was kind of rare outtakes of songs. They're just different mixes. And the interesting one was Warren Zevon, Greatest Hits.
Wow. Picked
by Judd Apatow. So he picked what he thought were the greatest hits. So anyway, I go there and there's a line, and I'm telling you, it was like maybe 40 people.
Wow.
So I'm like, I really don't want to wait in this line. If I come back tomorrow, they might not have these. Mm-hmm. So I decided, let me go do a couple other things. I went out to Target. Mm-hmm. I come back an hour later, and there was no line. Mm-hmm. And I walked right in.
Yeah. Because
they were only allowing a certain amount of people in the store.
Okay.
I think normally there might not be a line. And this isn't in a major city or anything. So I think if you went to New York or Philly, mm-hmm. Even on a normal day.
This is in New Jersey, right? Central New Jersey?
No, this is in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Palmer Park Mall.
Oh, okay.
So I was happy. I left with the 4 albums.
So you got all 4 then. That's really cool.
The other interesting thing is that when I first got there, I saw a guy come out of the store, and I went up to him and I asked him how long he was waiting, and he told me he got there at 5 a.m. Mm. So
diehard buyer.
There's a record store in New Brunswick.
Right.
And there's the one I went to in the Palmer Park Mall is probably 30 minutes away. Mm-hmm. So I got 2 record stores within reach. There used to be a time where I think maybe there could have been a record store in every other town.
All over, yeah.
Yeah.
But they all weren't good. I mean, record stores, they would just have a lot of the pop stuff, that they're the high volume.
Yeah.
Like you and I used to search out the cool record shops.
Yeah.
There was really a cool one in Bethlehem, PA.
Play it again.
Right. I
don't think they're there anymore.
Right.
Actually, let me tell you, the one in the Palmer Mall is called Spin Me Round. Mm-hmm. So I want to give a Spin Me Around.
Give shout out to Spin Me.
Yeah. And they do, they have video on YouTube when they get in collections and they reveal what they have.
Yeah.
And they're always in the front bin. Mm-hmm. So if you see something like, and these are from collections that people turn in. Mm-hmm. So you might see something like, oh, I gotta get out there and see if they have it.
Yeah. It's great marketing for the used product.
Yeah.
That just comes in randomly. Yeah.
And the people that work there are great. Mm-hmm. So I found this article. It's from New Brunswick Today. It's about a record store owner in New Brunswick, New Jersey, which is about 35 minutes from here. And it's called A Day in the Life of Hub City's Only Record Store. And this is by Bennett Kelly. And it was on November 8th, 2020, this was published. Now, the record store owner's name is Andrew Spina. It's Spina. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. He said, I started collecting records pretty young, probably around 12 or 13, just saving up money, buying a record here and there off the boardwalk. Now the store has a sign. It says Vinyl Record Shop, and it's hand-painted in black and gold lettering on the window front. It's the only record store currently in the hub city. That's what New Brunswick is called, a place known for its local music scene. Now, New Brunswick was home to several record stores during the 1980s and 1990s, including Cheap Thrills, Music from a Different Kitchen, which was owned by Jim Babjack of the Smithereens, and Planet X. But the last record store closed down around 1998, Spina reckons. Spina says, when I was in school here and going to all the shows, every single weekend, the topic of conversation would inevitably be, why isn't there a record store? And why isn't there a music venue in a college town? Spina did his part when he opened Spina Records in 2014 in a basement shop at 25 Easton Avenue. Now in 2017, he moved above ground to 118 Easton Avenue, doubling the store's size. After graduating Rutgers in 2008, he apprenticed under fellow Rutgers graduate Rob Marchisotto at Amber Lion Antique Store on George Street. He says that formed not only my road to owning a record store, but really defined my passion for vintage finds and antiques, dealing with chiselers and tough sellers. Spina saw the opportunity in its small table of vinyl records, which was a top-selling product at the 3,500 square foot store that closed in 2013. He says it wasn't until I worked there that I realized I think I want to try opening a store and go into business for myself. Now, he doesn't do much advertising. Having the brick and mortar store is an advertisement in itself. And people know to bring collections to the store for appraisal and hopefully for sale. He says kids aren't looking for near-mint Barbra Streisand records. They want Abbey Road. They want The Wall. It's a misconception that all records are popular again, because in the marketplace, only some records are popular again. Now, his recent vinyl purchase was 700 records, and it was the biggest of three collections. The biggest of the three collections came through a consignment connection he's worked with for the past 3 years. And he says they'll each get a cut when the records sell. The two smaller collections he bought from people who walked in. He said, I went through the crates that the walk-in person brought in, kind of evaluated what he had, made an offer, counter offer, came to a price, and then once that's done, he just buys them. And then I spend the rest of the time going through them, pulling the best stuff out first, pricing it, cleaning it, and then putting it out on the shelves. Later in the day, a teenager reached out on Instagram, brings in about 10 records for sale. He comes in and says, hi, I've got the records. Spina asks for a few minutes to appraise them, inspecting their playing conditions and comparing prices on Discogs. After about 8 minutes, Spina brings the customer back over and shares the diagnosis. He says this pile, they're very common and they're not that desirable. This one, unfortunately, is a little too scratched up, the Miles Davis one. This pile I am interested in. I could do $25 for this. So it's good to know that there are still record stores. More and more, I think, are popping up recently. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, some had to shut down. But hopefully when this is over, we'll see more record stores, more interest in vinyl. So again, that was from an article from New Brunswick Today, written by Bennett Kelly. And I thank Bennett for giving me permission to talk about his article and to read some excerpts from it. So next up, we're going to talk about the most expensive vinyl albums.
Right, not ones that sold most expensive, but ones that if you would have them, possess them now, and sell them, they would be worth that.
Yeah.
Not most expensive to buy when they were new, of course.
So we're going by this list of 40. We've each picked, I think, 6. This is from finance101.com. The article is by James Regan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with number 39.
All right.
And that is Miles Davis, Kinda Blue. And this was from 1959. And it says it may not be the number one on this list, but it's arguably the coolest record on here.
Yes. Miles Davis is cool.
So Miles Davis revolutionized the jazz genre multiple times during his career, but his most valuable record, at least in financial terms, is Some Kinda Blue.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best-selling jazz album to date.
Okay.
There's nothing really special about this except the original pressing of the album.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say how many were made. If you have an original pressing, it can rake up to $1,000. Now, this is the least expensive on this list, so
it's just going up from here, Jim.
So it could be it could be in reach, $1,000 if you have 1,000 laying around, and you want that original recording.
Jim, all of these are legitimately produced and sold albums. This does not include bootlegs, and some of you are thinking that because when we used to go out, we used to look for bootlegs, and we'd pay higher, and we get stuff that's really unique.
Yeah, these are directly from the record company.
Yeah. All right, at number 36, we have XTC. That's X and a T and a C, not the word ecstasy. XTC had Science Friction, and it's an early album. They put out in 1977. And this British new wave band put out this and the single called She's So Square. They purportedly made only 50 copies.
Wow.
Yeah, put it out on a 12-inch. This album, if you have it, from 1977, it could be worth about $2,000.
Wow. I like that title, though, Science Friction.
Science Friction.
Yeah.
Yeah, XTC is quite scientific and logical in their lyrics.
So at 24, and we are, as you notice, we are skipping around, but we're going to highest to lowest. 24 is Elvis Presley, Speedway, 1968. Now I'm a big Elvis fan, and when I do go to record conventions, which I hadn't been to one in probably a year or more, I look for Like the last one I was at, a guy had tons of Elvis, and they were all cheap. I picked up a couple for $1 a piece.
Wow.
And they sound, I look at the albums. That's another thing. You look at the album. These albums are sometimes graded. Even these albums that we're talking about that are rare, if you have a scratched up copy, if it's in really poor condition, it may not be worth. It's not going to be worth what we're telling.
Yeah, these are vinyl that people and covers that people have cared about.
Really good condition. By the time Elvis made Speedway, he was nearing the end of his acting career, and the film wasn't well received by critics or at the box office.
He was most known for singing, not acting.
Yeah, believe it or not, every movie that Elvis came out with, I forget how many there were like 20, 30 movies.
Wow.
There's an album for that movie.
Yeah.
So Elvis...
Marketing.
And despite the film's failings, copies of the soundtrack are extremely valuable. And rumor has it that only 300 copies were printed.
Wow.
So
that is so low.
And it said if you had the foresight not to take the record out of its packaging. So this is the key. You would not have played this album.
See, I don't believe in that, Jim. Yeah. Jim, I don't believe in the toys, toy figures, and leaving them in the box. I'm going to take them out and play with them because, you only live once. Well, but anyway, if you do that, if you think that.
Yeah. I mean, some people buy, with the action figures, they'll buy one to keep in the box, and one to play with.
One to let the dog play with.
Yeah. So if you didn't give this one, if the dog didn't get this one, and you still have the red sticker, that's another on the shrink wrap.
Ooh.
You could have $5,000 on your hands.
Nice.
So that one's worth. So there's only 300 of that one.
Yeah, nice.
So what do you got, Mike?
So next up is number 23 of the top 40 most expensive vinyl LPs. We've been talking about stuff that we know already, and this one, though, I've never heard of. It's a new one.
Okay.
So it's Brute Force, and the album is King of Pho. 1969, summer of 69 of all times. This is printed by the Beatles label Apple Recordings, and it almost never saw the light of day, all because it featured an obscenity in the lyrics. And I'm going to let you listeners figure out what that obscenity might be for King of Pho. It came clear to Capitol and EMI they wanted no part of this. So they featured an overdub of Philharmonic strings done by George Harrison himself.
Wow.
And then the Beatles decided to put it out. So the record was given a proper release not until 2010. Okay, so 10 years ago, finally they decide, it's nearly a half century after it was recorded. But the original run was only 1,000 copies. If you have that, it's worth about $5,000. King of Pho.
Yeah.
Original King of Pho.
So the Beatles they were pretty ingrained in Apple in picking artists. I don't know if you know that. And, several artists were on Apple, or there might have been another label. I'm sure you Beatles freaks out there will know the answer. One of them was Badfinger, and Badfinger's going to come into prominence in a future podcast. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Okay, now we have number 16. And I'm going to make a confession. I simply love Olivia Newton-John. I've loved her since I was a kid.
She looks good on the album cover, actually.
Yeah, now this is one of the albums I didn't have. I don't even know if I saw the movie, but I'm sure you all know what I'm going to say. It's Xanadu. 1980. Now this recording is Olivia Newton-John and ELO. Cool. Electric Light Orchestra.
Yeah.
So this is the album Xanadu. It's funny because the author of this article says the title Xanadu frequently appears on another type of list, and it's been called one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah. So. And it was a nightclub, too. I've been to Xanadu, the nightclub. I forget what city that was in. So
this looks like it's the soundtrack to the album. Rumor has it that Olivia Newton-John hated the way she looked in the picture printed on the front of the disc so much that she had the record company stop the pressing.
Wow.
Now this is a picture disc.
Oh, so it's got her on the vinyl.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, she's got, it's like imprinting wrinkles on your body, Jim, because it's all the lines, So she's got lots of lines on her body because of all the lines on the album.
Well, it's just her head on the album.
Oh, well, she got lines on her face then.
I don't know.
No, I mean, it can be the cover, but we don't really know what was on the vinyl. It could have been, full body or something.
This is interesting. Between 20 and 30 records survived. I don't know how they know this. But if you manage to sneak a copy away from Olivia Newton-John, you may be able to cash it in for $9,100. So
wow.
So some got out, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So what's up next, Mike?
We have Bruce Springsteen, Spirit in the Night, taking us way back to 1973.
I don't know Bruce Springsteen. I'm just kidding.
So promotional copies will sell for hundreds. So there was promo copies out there. They sell for hundreds of dollars each. But the original pressings of the commercial release could be as much as $5,000. So though, this album wasn't met with critical acclaim, and neither were the singles, it wasn't until his third album, Born to Run, that he got commercial success.
Yeah.
So if you have the original printing, not promotional, you could be worth $5,000.
So we're up to number 10 with the Beatles, Yesterday and Today, 1966.
Oh, it's a good year. You know what I mean?
Now, this album I know very well. Original cover of this record featured a photo of John, Paul, George, and Ringo dressed in butcher's attire, holding headless baby dolls.
No.
With raw meat strewn across their laps.
No, you're making this up, man. What?
They don't have a picture of it here.
Yeah,
but I know the album because, believe it or not, my brother has a copy.
Very cool.
It says, in retrospect, it's hard to imagine what they were thinking. Yes. Though who are we to question one of the best-selling and most influential bands of all time?
The Roaches?
So safe to... Huh?
The Beatles. The Beatles.
Safe to say the cover wasn't well received.
I guess not.
So much, in fact, that Capitol Records spent $250,000 buying back records that had been printed and shipped to stores.
Wow.
This album is worth $15,300. It says they weren't able to get their hands on all of them.
Jim, I never knew about that. You want to say that again? They're pictured. The Beatles are pictured as butchers.
Yeah, they're wearing butcher aprons,
and they have headless doll babies in their hands.
Yeah, they're dolls. They're baby dolls.
No, dolls. Yeah, doll babies. Yeah,
and then there's raw meat in there.
Wow, I have never heard of this.
They're butchering babies or something.
I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
So next up, Jim, we've been talking a lot about stuff from the 60s and the 70s. We're going to jump ahead to 1998 with a high price album, and I'm going to tell you why. The White Stripes, Lafayette Blues. Here's why. There's only 15 copies pressed of this vinyl, and each cover is hand painted by a man named David Buick. Okay, so 15, and they're hand painted. The album, which features the song Lafayette Blues on side A and Sugar Never Tasted So Good on side B. The copies were made for a Detroit record release show for the band in 1988. And if you would have one and you spent $6 to get one there at the show, it would be worth $12,700.
Wow.
If you spent your $6. So this, of course, is Jack White, The White Stripe.
So speaking of hand painted,
I'm
going to blow your mind with this one. And this is not in our top 40, by the way, but I came across this while I was doing a little research. So the Flaming Lips.
Yeah, we know that.
They had a human blood-filled album. Yes.
I don't know what that means. Yeah, I'm stumped.
So it was called Hetty Fwens with a W. Was available for $2,500 in a limited edition of 10 copies. With all the proceeds, now this is a good cause, going to the Oklahoma Humane Society as charity.
Okay, still don't see where you're going with this, but
this was not only the Flaming Lips, but but think about it. This is 10 copies.
Yeah, wow.
So you had to get
You had to beat my 15, didn't you?
Yeah,
I had 15, okay.
It wasn't only the Flaming Lips. Among the celebrities who gave their blood samples were Nick Cave, Erykah Badu, if I'm saying that right, Coldplay's Chris Martin.
Wow.
And
John Bon Jovi. John Bon Jovi.
No, believe it or not, I'm going to bring up her name again. And
Olivia Newton-John.
No. Kesha.
Kesha with the dollar sign.
We're always talking about Kesha.
No, she's a nice person. She can't sing, but she's a nice person.
So there were,
I didn't sing.
And then there was one other one, real quick. Harry Manfredini Friday the 13th, original motion picture score, created by Waxworks Records, was released on limited 100 copies blood-filled liquid vinyl. We don't know whose blood that was. It doesn't say.
So
Maybe
you're
Jason.
telling me that they've got blood, real blood mixed in with the vinyl.
Yeah, here, our listeners won't be able to see, but I do have pictures.
Yeah, well, sure enough, I guess it's blood. I guess it stays red. You know how it gets.
I don't know how thick the album was to fill it with blood.
Yeah.
You know?
They are a limited pressing of 10 blood-filled albums.
Yeah.
And again, it's a Flaming Lips, right? Wow.
So, Mike, why don't you give us another one on the list?
Yeah. So at number 5 is Bob Dylan, the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan.
Mm-hmm. I know that one.
This is 1963. Sometimes a small mistake or imperfection is enough to drive up the price. On this album, a few tracks were meant to be replaced before the release, but someone at the pressing plant missed the memo, and a few copies featuring the wrong songs were pressed.
Oh,
yeah. So if you've got
that's not good.
Yeah, so it would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a copy with a serial number that ends in -1A and includes these 4 songs, and that is Rocks and Gravel, Let Me Die in My Footsteps, Gamblin' Willie's Dead Man's, and Talkin' John Birch Blues. Yeah, that's some complicated titles.
So pull out your vinyl.
Yeah.
Freewheelin'.
Yeah.
Check this.
Yep. That said that there are said to be less than 20 mono copies as opposed to stereo, and only 2 stereo copies. So 20 mono and 2 stereo, and they were worth around $35,000.
Wow.
Yeah, that's some big stuff there.
So next I have number 4, Tommy Johnson, who I've never heard of, and this is from 1930.
That's why it's not popular in our time there.
Alcohol and Jake Blues.
Uh-huh.
So in a stroke of luck, the North Carolina seller of this extremely rare 78 RPM slab came into possession of the record at an estate sale.
Mm-hmm.
So he threw the record. This is the seller of the album. He threw the record up on eBay and watched a bidding frenzy take place.
Wow.
So obviously he didn't know what he had when the final bid came in at $37,100. Now, the reason is there are believed to be only 2 copies of the record in existence.
Mm-hmm.
And they both now belong to the winning bidder, John Tefteller.
Uh-huh.
So this Tommy Johnson, he was a blues singer and guitarist, and he was the inspiration for the character of the same name in the Coen Brothers film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Huh.
And he was no relation to Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Jim, we've got 2 more to talk about, and the prices keep going up and up. At number 3, we have the Black Album. After recording the Black Album, that's Prince, or the artist formerly and now known as Prince. After recording the Black Album, also known as the Funk Bible, and pressing 500,000 copies, so he's got 500,000 plus copies out there, he decided to halt the release and paid the label to recall all of the records. The reason was the singer had a substance-fueled epiphany that this record was evil. So it got some radio play. It was bootlegged, and it says evidently the singer changed his mind about the record. He released a CD version of this after all that in 1994. So if you have the Canadian version, it is worth $27,000, and if you have the American version, original of this, it's worth over $42,000.
Wow. So next we have this is the Holy Grail.
Yes, it is.
And it is definitely the Holy Grail of vinyl albums because there is only one. Okay. Now there's more than one, but it is numbered 1.
Right. There is only one, number 1 in limited printing.
So this is the Beatles.
It's called the Beatles.
Yeah. The Beatles, the Beatles, aka the White Album, 1968. This particular album is one of a kind. It's the very first pressing of the beloved 9th album by the Fab Four, and it's marked with the serial number A and about 7 zeros and a 1, so it's 1, to prove it. For years it was rumored that the first copy went to the late John Lennon, but really it went to Ringo Starr.
All right, Ringo probably still has it.
So Ringo kept this in a bank vault for 3.5 decades.
Wow.
So that's 35 years.
Yeah.
This expensive piece of polyvinyl chloride was
It's
sold.
a slab, man.
Yeah.
It's a slab.
Was sold during a charity auction for a whopping $790,000. Now, Ringo did something good with the money.
Yeah, that's cool.
He put the money towards his own Lotus Foundation, a charity that provides support for victims of domestic violence, cancer research, the homeless, and other notable causes.
Jim, that is a great way to make money from somewhere. I mean, I don't know where the money comes from.
Yeah.
A great way to make money and give it away.
Now, even if you aren't in possession of this original vinyl, one that was numbered 23, A and all the zeros, it was number 23, sold for $13,750 in 2012.
Wow.
So you can get your hands on one for a lot less than $790.
So, Jim, if you had this one, like the show says, what would you do? Well, what would you do if you had number 24 and someone offered you $13,000 for it? What would you do?
I don't know. You always think of holding on to it until you can, or even giving it to your child. And
I'd sell it. So next up, we are going to be looking at the top singles. Next up, we have the top 10 singles from 50 years ago. Yeah. All right. So, Jim, you're gonna start. You're gonna start with number 10, and then we're gonna go down to 1.
Yeah, and this is this is the week of December 19th, 1970. We're going back to 1970 again.
Yeah.
We have number 10. No Matter What by Badfinger.
Yeah, I love it. Love that band.
Now, this is a song about a guy trying to get a woman who won't pay much attention to him. And he'll do everything for her, but apparently she's put up a wall between them.
Yeah.
Now, here's some lyrics. Won't you tell me what you found, girl? Oh, girl, won't you? I don't know what she found. Maybe a watch he was missing or something. Now, I have to be honest, because until I looked at these lyrics, and I've heard this song many times, I could have swore he's saying, knock down the old gray wall.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Yeah.
It's brick wall.
All right.
And be a part of it all.
Yeah, it's the accent. We're gonna give it to that.
If you would give me all as I would give it to you. Now,
it's a pseudonym.
To the way I said that, nothing would be, nothing, and so on. Although the song and recording was a favorite of Badfinger shortly after it was recorded, the hierarchy at Apple reportedly was not inclined to release it in any format.
Wow.
And it wasn't until Al Steckler, the American director of Apple in New York, hearing the tape in August 1970 and considering it a strong entry by the band, that it was remixed and slotted for the upcoming LP as a single release. And I found a version of this, believe it or not, by Def Leppard.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, this Def Leppard, they put out an album called Yeah, and it's all cover tunes.
I'm going to have to check that out.
It's a killer version, and it's not totally, they didn't take it and make it into a Def Leppard song. It's a very good good tribute to this album.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a great song. It starts off really aggressively. In fact, I let my brother listen to it just last week. I played it for him. He goes, yeah, I know that song. It's the Beatles, right? I said, no, it sounds like it could be the Beatles. Listeners, if you don't know this song, No Matter What, by Badfinger, check it out, because you do already know the song. You just don't know it by its title.
Or even check out Badfinger.
Yeah. It'd be great to, check them out, like maybe see if they're still around or what they're doing today. Maybe we should do that sometime.
Yeah. Number 9, we have Gypsy Woman by Brian Hyland. Now, I really didn't know this song.
I don't know it either, Jim. No.
Now, it's a simple song. It's about a guy who falls in love with a gypsy woman, and she's about to leave with her caravan. Okay. So it's actually, it's not like he's saying she's a gypsy. She's actually a gypsy woman.
Yeah.
The song, like I say, it's almost too simple to even be on the top 10.
Yeah, how did it get there? I listened to it.
Yeah, the chorus is literally, he says it only twice, she was a gypsy woman. And then I Love You, Gypsy Woman at the end. He says it, the chorus is like just 2 times, and I don't think if this song was released today.
No, it wouldn't be making it. No.
Yeah.
No.
And it was originally recorded by the Impressions in 1961.
Yeah.
So.
But now, he is known for other songs, more well known. He sang and wrote Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Brian Hyland?
Yes. And so there's 8, by the way, there's 8 words in that title.
Yeah.
It's getting a little long. But he also wrote and sang, or I should say he sang, I'm not sure if he wrote, Sealed with a Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that song a little better than Gypsy.
And Brian Hyland's still alive. He's in his 70s.
You should find out what he's doing.
Yeah, we should interview him.
Yeah. So next up, we got number 8. Oh, this, by the way, what you're going to say next is another title with 8 words in it. Just that.
Okay.
I'm a numbers guy here. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at number 8 is Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is?
Question mark. So it's, even longer.
Now, this is a song, I've known this song a long time. Of course, it came out in 1970. Now, I love this song because there's horns. Chicago's known for their horns.
The whole intro is very jazzy and bouncy. Yeah.
So horns and piano. Horns are prominent in this song. Now, what I didn't know was there was another version. The original version started off with a free-form piano solo. And that goes on for 1:14.
In front of the jazzy other intro.
Yeah,
right.
and then
just
the
keeps
horns,
going. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it is the exact same song. They just cut out this piano, which I think actually works.
I've got to listen to that. I've got to listen to the long version sometime.
It doesn't add anything to the song. And it is improvised, so...
So he's not playing it again very easily, yeah.
Now, the trumpet player, Lee Logan, Loughane, he was 6'3" trumpet player.
Wow.
He was also an actor, and he was also on the Bee Gees song, Too Much Heaven.
Wow.
Now, this song was the first song Chicago recorded. Very first song for the debut album.
I did not know that.
But it was not released as a single until 2 tracks from the second band's album, Make Me Smile, that's a song, and 25 or 6 to 4 had become hits. And then they released this song, and this was the band's 3rd top 10.
Very daring to start out their first recorded song with the piano improv, and then the jazzy, bouncy intro. And then, it's not a regular way to start out a song. For recording, it's like, let's do all this. So, I got to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, number 7 is next up.
So this is, number 7 is Stoned Love by the Supremes. Now this is, I wasn't impressed by this song.
Me either, Jim.
And it's probably one of their last hits as the Supremes. Now, many people saw this song as a coded reference to drug use.
Yeah.
Okay.
The stoned part.
Yeah. Many radio station owners were at first apprehensive to play the record.
Wow.
And Barry Gordy, who was the Motown's founder, was also said to have hated the song.
I hate that song. Get that on the radio.
So the label executive, Barney Ailes, had to arrange for RKO radio stations to agree to play Stone Love before releasing the single. So they had to play it first. So he talked them into playing it, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, fearing that the song was indeed a reference to drug use, CBS cut a live performance of the song from a November 1970 episode of The Merv Griffin Show. Now, this is what's interesting, because this song was originally written and recorded as Stone Love, with no D.
Stone Love.
But during the process of mixing and releasing, it was mislabeled as Stone Love. So it was not about drugs.
Yeah.
It defined the concept of an unchanging bond between one another.
Yeah.
A solid relationship, solid love.
For those who don't follow the Supremes much or know much about their music, Where Did Our Love Go? We Can't Hurry Love. Stop.
In the name of love.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's interesting that this would be there when those other songs did so well.
Yeah, and it was their last Billboard top 10 hit for the group. Peaked at number 7. Now I'm going to put this in perspective with the Supremes, is that this was off their 21st album.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
The Supremes had 29 albums total in 14 years. So it's 2 albums a year. put this in even more perspective, the Rolling Stones, so to compare these two, to know just how many, because most bands nowadays, you're lucky if you get an album every 3 years, 4 years sometimes. The Rolling Stones, in their 52 years of recording, have recorded 25 albums.
Yeah.
So, and they recorded 29 in 14 years.
And they're doing the singing. They're singing, arranging, but they're not writing. There's a lot of writers who are writing the material. Maybe they write
they
some,
had Motown had a lot of writers
songs to choose from. They would actually go through and look through and choose and say, oh, this is a good one. Let's try this one. So a little different than number 6.
So number 6, we have a song that's actually dear to my heart. Knock 3 Times.
Yeah.
I've always liked this song, since I was a young teen.
Yeah.
What's interesting is this song, Mike, I don't know if you noticed, but it's by Dawn.
I did notice that. I was going to mention it's by Dawn.
It's not by Tony Orlando and Dawn.
When I called it up on Apple Music, there was Tony's face along with Dawn.
Well, Tony is singing on it, of course.
Yeah.
His name was Michael Anthony Orlando Casavitas. He was at the time of the recording working as a producer and the singer for a rival record label, and he first heard the tune recorded by another artist and immediately knew the song could be a hit if produced as he envisioned.
Yeah.
So he cut the track discreetly under the name Dawn, hoping that his current record label would not find out. And upon release, the song became a great success.
Just like he envisioned it, yeah.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Dawn was the two female singers. They together were called Dawn.
Yeah.
It's not just one female.
I think the singers on this song are not they were early, there were 2 different women.
Okay.
Yeah. Tony Wine and Linda November.
Tony. Why would he call himself Tony if he's working with Tony?
Now, if you haven't heard this song, you really need to. It's about a guy who lives in an apartment. And this beautiful woman lives in the apartment below him. So he wants to give her signals as to her interest in him.
Yeah.
And does she really even know him? Do they pass in the hallway?
Does she think he's a creep?
Yeah. Is he singing so loud up there that she actually hears him saying, hey girl, what you doing down there? Dancing alone every night while I live right above you. So he knows she's single.
Yeah.
I can hear your music playing. I can feel your body swaying. 1 floor below me, you don't even know me. So he's stalking. He's about to stalk her. I love you.
That's what he said. I love you.
He just blurts out, I love you.
Yeah.
And then, oh my darling. So he wants her to knock. There's different signals. Knock 3 times if you want me. And then I think he says twice on the pipe means you ain't gonna show. So she's got to hear him singing up there to know what, signals.
Yeah. She probably just stomped with her foot,
So, Mike, you got the...
Yeah, we're going to go number 5 through number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, this week, 50 years ago. Number 5, Black Magic Woman by Santana. We know Santana, guitar virtuoso, spanning decades. It's not just a song, it's an experience. The song got airplay. The one used for airplay was 3 minutes and 15 seconds. But the other version, they've cut pieces out.
Yeah.
The other version, because it's like, that can't be 3 minutes and 15 seconds. I mean, So the other version allows for more guitar and includes, at the end, it's called Black Magic Woman / Gypsy Queen. So that whole part at the end where they're just jamming with the congas and full band, just jamming. And it comes to a great close. Yeah, that would be Gypsy Queen right at the end there. Number 4. Jim, when I listened to this prepping for the podcast, it was really hard to go from Santana to the Partridge Family.
Yeah.
It's a big leap. Maybe you can do it better than I can. It was tough. But it's I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family. And it's starring Shirley Jones and David Cassidy. The Partridge Family. Yeah. I grew up watching as a kid, watching them, watching the Monkees.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch, maybe.
Yeah. But musically, the Monkees, I was shaped by the Monkees and the Partridge Family. And I always wonder, what would Danny do? That's my question. What would Danny think of all this? The Bonaducer.
Now this is another song. I have a deep affection for 70s, cheesy.
Now Shirley was a bit older than you. You didn't have a crush on Shirley.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
But I like this song. And my wife and I were at Busch Gardens one year, many years ago. David Cassidy was doing a show there.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to see him, but I was surprised because we ran into, of all people,
Danny
Bonaduce.
Yeah.
He was there also, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did, but he was obviously going over to where the show was.
Was it? It wasn't like the Partridge Family. It was David Cassidy, or
yeah, it was David Cassidy.
Yeah.
He probably had a band with him.
Yeah.
So we're probably talking in the mid '90s, something like that.
Yeah. So my earliest memories weren't so much. I don't know how it got from the Partridge Family to David Cassidy, but David Cassidy became popular.
David Cassidy is the main singer on this song.
Yeah, he's quite the heartthrob. So my older sister, 3 years older, she had a poster. Jim, this is so long ago. She either had a poster or she made a poster, a drawing. She was an artist back then, my sister, and had a poster of David Cassidy.
Okay.
There was a falling out.
Okay.
There was some sort of falling out. Kind of like you had with the Bee Gees or with John Travolta.
John
Travolta, yes. It's a sad falling out.
It is.
Yeah. The poster, my brother and I somehow changed it from David Cassidy to David Acidy. and his face got marked up and stuff. And it's sad, it's just child's play. We don't mean any harm against David, If he was here,
you said your sister had a falling out before that, right?
Yeah.
So she didn't really care about the poster?
No, she didn't care. Okay. She might have done it. I just remember that's how, I don't know how it happened. I actually don't remember, but it was no more than. The poster's gone.
Briefly, me and John, we had a falling out.
Johnny, you call him.
Yeah. And John Travolta had put out an album called Travolta Fever. It was a gatefold, opened up, and he was wearing the tightest white pants,
white satin. John Travolta in white satin.
Now to clarify, I wasn't in love with John Travolta.
No.
Okay. No. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You're exploring.
But I was
exploring music.
No, I liked his voice.
Yeah.
His acting was okay.
He was dancing, man. Dancing fool.
I had a falling out. I didn't like John Travolta anymore. It wasn't cool, even if it was cool at one time. But with Grease, and Grease was kind of cool.
Yeah, Grease is the word.
So I went in my car. Now I physically took the album, put it in my car, and drove somewhere. I can't remember.
You were alone. You had to be alone.
Yeah. And I don't think I was the car wasn't moving. I probably pulled over and I took the album and it was a double album and I just whipped the albums out. And I don't think it was right. I think it might have been a field. So can you imagine a farmer or something walking, and then I took the actual gatefold and threw it and whipped it, sad. That was a sad day for me. So anyway.
Oh, the things we went through.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving to number 3.
Yes.
One Less Bell to Answer by the Fifth Dimension. It's very slow. It's very smooth. This is a song about a woman losing her man. Okay. Lyrics, I should be happy, but all I do is cry.
Yeah.
And One Less Bell to Answer.
One less bell to answer.
So this was also done by Barbra Streisand and the cast of Glee.
Okay.
I enjoyed the cast of Glee doing this great version. Kristen Chenoweth singing, and it really comes together. But it's a '70s song. It's early '70s, 1970. Brought in that slow and smooth, and talking about the breakup.
Yeah, and I think the Fifth Dimension was Motown.
Okay.
Is this? Did you say Patti LaBelle?
No, Barbra Streisand.
Oh,
yeah.
Barbra. Oh,
Barbra Streisand.
I didn't even know she sang that.
Yeah. So number 2, a lot of variety, in this. When you go from Santana to the Partridge Family, and then you go to, Streisand and the Fifth Dimension. So we're hitting.
Yeah, like today's top 10 is like 10 rap songs.
Yeah, and then some other pop.
Not that there's anything wrong.
Not that there's anything wrong
with rap. But, that's the way it is. And we're old. You know.
But you're talking about a lack of diversity.
Yeah.
So, Jim, here at number 2 is My Sweet Lord by George Harrison. It's from the album All Things Must Pass.
Yes.
And I really have to think about 1970. Okay, this is recorded mid-1970.
Mm-hmm.
All Things Must Pass.
Yeah.
George Harrison doing the... what kind of references, what's he going through with the loss of his friends, the Beatles?
Mm-hmm.
Not that people died, but, just the loss of the Beatles. And so it's All Things Must Pass. It's a very interesting song because it's really more of a repetitive praise chorus worship. It's my sweet Lord, I really want to see you. I really want to know you. I really want to be with you. Alleluia, alleluia. So he's expressing his spiritual feelings, through
George
song.
Harrison was a very spiritual.
Yeah. Jim, why is it isn't it a pity? Is that the B-side?
No, I found out there's such a thing as a double A-side.
Okay, you're doing 3 songs on your single. Got it. At least 3 or 4.
Well, no, that My Sweet Lord was on one side, Isn't It a Pity was on the other.
Oh.
They're both considered A-sides. There's no B-side.
It's a little pretentious, don't you think? Because it's still, A-side, B-side. You're saying that one is as important as the other.
Yes,
I see.
Because when you have an A-side and a B-side, you're going to promote the A-side more or not promote at all the B-side, that song. It may not get any airplay. So you want both sides to be promoted the same. Both sides are hits, in quotes, or prospective hit songs. Neither side will be promoted over the other.
But I think if you'd find the average person on the street, they don't know, as I don't know, Isn't It a Pity? Do I know that song?
I listened to it, but I didn't recognize it.
So
we know, most people know My Sweet Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Beatles were known, though, due to a disagreement between EMI and John Lennon about which side of the Beatles We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper single should be considered the A-side and receive the plugging. EMI settled for a double-side promotion campaign, and it was unique in Britain. And the Beatles did that with a couple others. I don't know for a fact if they created the double A-side.
Yeah, they could have. Yeah. And, they were making so many hits, Jim, that, surrounded by teams of people to see what's going to be a hit. So, with that Day Tripper and the other one you mentioned, I can see that.
So now with us knowing My Sweet Lord and not the other song,
right?
In Canada, Isn't It a Pity? Which, by the way, when I went on YouTube and found the song, it's a 7-minute song.
Okay, it's a little long for that.
It reached number 1 in Canada as the preferred side. So they know that song. People would remember a 7-minute song, if you're old enough in 1970.
Well, I'm going to have to look that up, and our listeners can do that too. Isn't It a Pity?
So we got number 1.
Number 1 coming up. This is from the album 1 Dozen Roses by Smokey Robinson, and this song is Tears of a Clown. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Interesting. Most of us know this song, and it's been covered by other people as well. Talking about showing vulnerability, emotional and relational vulnerability and humility. It's talking about how he just says over and over again, different ways, really, how he's appearing to be happy, but really he's not.
Yeah.
He says, I'm hurt and I want you to know, but for others, I put on a show. This was covered by the English Beat. I think you remember that from the 1980s. And a little faster, even more fast and boppy. Yeah. Tears of a Clown.
And that's another Motown, Smokey Robinson.
Yeah. But interesting the way he just brings out the honesty and the vulnerability that, not everybody does these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wraps up.
It's been a great show and talking about vinyl, and hope you've got some music to go back and listen to, go back and find.
Get out there and explore vinyl.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Until next time, we'll see you.
Intro and exit music by the band 99%.
Today's show was produced and edited by Jim Thatcher. You can find Jim and Mike Talk on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and their host site, Podbean.
The following songs were used on today's podcast with royalty-free permission. Lowest Face by Derek Craig, Life and Times by Chad Crouch, Hot Shot by Scott Holmes, and Dead Birds by Keith Doom and the Wrecking Crew.